Hello and welcome to episode 155 of Controller Club, the friendly face gaming space, a podcast where three friends from three continents share in one love, and that is video games. My name is Klein Felt, and alongside me today are three very special guests. But before we get to all that, what are we going to be doing here today? The Last of Us Season 2 finale has come and gone, and we will be reviewing it. Now, let's introduce our panel of hosts for the day. First, it is the digital art of Daredevil himself coming to us live from across the pond, the Pokemon card enthusiast, or addict, I guess. Tom Drew. Tom, how are the shiny cardboard looking these days?
Yeah, it's still bad, but I think I'm getting better. I went to MCM Comic Con in London this past weekend. I only bought one card, so I feel like that's improvement, guys. It could have got a lot worse, in my opinion. So I prioritized getting some cool artwork, some cool prints. I was like, you know what, guys, the Pokemon stuff, we're gonna slow down a little bit. We're gonna put the brakes on. So maybe it's getting better. Maybe I'll relapse. Who knows?
Next up, it is journalist extraordinaire, the Australian abroad, Canadian in training, our Last of Us superfan, Lauren Rouse. Lauren, what's going on? How are you? Fresh off a flight, I see.
Yes, more Canadian training occurred this week. I've been in Winnipeg, which is, I don't know, in the middle somewhere. Just checking it out there. So I don't know what to say about Winnipeg. It was nice weather, I suppose, but we always talk about the weather on this podcast, so let's not go down that slope.
Yeah, not happening today. That's not why we're here, because we have a very special guest joining us. Joining us for the very first time, a gaming luminary in my eyes, I would say, the host of the Spawn on Me podcast, Kahlief Adams. Kahlief, how are you? How are things? Introduce yourselves to the listeners, the viewers on YouTube here. What do people got to know about you? Who are you and what's going on?
First of all, thank you so much for having me. Second of all, shout out to the Winnipeg Jets. Shout out to Brett the Hitman Hart, who I also know was from Winnipeg, if I remember correctly. Yeah, my name is Kahlief Adams. I run the Spawn on Me podcast. We are in year 11 of our show. We have been at the forefront of conversations around race and games for a very long time. I try to say that we are the premier podcast spotlighting people of color and marginalized folks. And I've been doing a really good job. And I hope for folks who have been checking out our show for a long time. And I'm really excited to be here to talk about Last of Us and talk about Winnipeg and to talk about card addiction. I'm excited for all those things.
You got a little peek behind the curtain at who we are at Controller Club very early
I love
on. This is
love it.
I don't want to say we're unhinged, but we have some fun here on the podcast. Before we get to the Last of Us Season 2 finale review, Kahlief, we got to do what we always do when we have a special guest here on the show. The game to get to know you, a game that you might be a favorite, might be a definitive gaming experience, maybe something you just played that you want to shout out. Just a game for the listeners, the viewers at home to kind of understand who Kahlief Adams is as a person before we get into talking about what we're going to chat about today.
Ooh, that's a fantastic question. I'm going to go for a deep cut, something that a lot of folks don't know or haven't played, which is a game from the PS3 era, which was called 4AM. It is a game that was mostly used with the Move controllers, and it was a music synthesizer and or music creation tool. It was super cool because you basically used your two Move controllers and you would have your camera set up for most folks who had that tech. And you would go into it, and it was basically like a flat screen. You had not a lot of actual UI, but you could control the four corners of your screen and of your monitor by pulling and pushing and moving the Move controllers around to basically orchestrate a song. And you would see if you had an audience by this spectrograph that would kind of raise. It would look like a kind of almost an equalizer that would pulsate on the bottom of the screen. And it was cool because it was not only like one of the first games that had almost a community component that came along with it that had real-time feedback, but it was a thing where you could actually make really cool songs or make really cool music just by using the Move controller. So it is a very, very wild deep cut. It's from the folks from Q Games, folks who made like the Pixel Junk games. And it was really, really dope. It's one of my favorite games of all time, and I'm trying to find a good way to still play it. If I could, that would be great.
That sounds absolutely insane. It sounds absolutely up my alley. I can't believe I haven't heard about it. PS3,
Yeah.
right in my wheelhouse.
Mhm.
And you use the Move wands to create this music.
Yeah, super fun. It was great. And you know, the idea of having people listen to you while you kind of, performed was a very new concept. It was just like before was this before Rock Band and stuff? I think it might have been pre-Rock Band stuff, or at least around in that same era. But it was a very special time. I'm sad that the PlayStation fam didn't continue to kind of move with it. And we got more support for it. But if you can get a chance to play that thing, and if it's still playable, like, you should go check it out. It's dope.
4 a.m. That's what it's
Yeah.
called.
Mhm.
Are you a fuser head? Was that something that ever?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Fuser, drop mix,
Definitely
all
some
that
DNA.
stuff.
I could see some connective tissue for sure.
Yeah. I mean, Amplitude was the foundation, right? And all those games coming from that. Those were definitely games in my wheelhouse. I love those things with my whole heart.
What
Those
I
are
would
great.
do for a new Amplitude right now. Oh my gosh.
Oh, right? Oh, so good. So good.
Ugh. Okay, let's do this thing. Let's get into it. The last episode of The Last of Us Season 2, the final edition, at least for now, of Cordyceps Club. Lauren Rouse, take it away. The Last of Us Season 2 finale review. Let's go.
This is it, our last episode of Cordyceps Club for the season. It's come around really quickly, and I'm kind of sad about it, but very excited to get into this one. But before we do, Kahlief, I want to know what your backstory is with The Last of Us. Have you played the games? Do you like the show? Walk us through it.
Yeah, big fan of the entire universe. Big fan of Last of Us 1 and 2. The show has been fantastic for the most part. There's some dips and dives in there that we can definitely talk about, but I think overall, as a person who loves, post-apocalyptic worlds and loves what Naughty Dog does with their games, it was the perfect kind of confluence to see all those things come together. So big fan on your hands today. So hope you're excited to talk about it.
Oh, for sure. We're also all really big fans, so you're among friends here, which is going to
Yeah.
make for a good discussion. Just highlight what we're going to do here, I've planned we'll do our general spoiler-free impressions as usual. Then we're going to break down beat by beat what happened in this episode. We'll have some categories that we've been doing at the end of the episodes, so we'll go through those, and then I think we might give our overall thoughts on the season, seeing as this is the season finale, and maybe share some season 3 predictions that we might have. So it's going to be a packed episode. But like I said, we'll start with general spoiler-free thoughts on the episode. This was episode 7, titled Convergence, written by Neil Druckmann, Halle Gross, and Craig Mazin, and was directed by Nina Lopez Corrado. So, Klein, we'll start with you. What were your overall feelings on this finale?
I loved it. I thought that we landed the plane quite well on The Last of Us Part 2, as Ka kind of teased there. I think this season specifically had its ups and downs. I don't think it was nearly as consistent as the first season was, or maybe even when we get to overall thoughts, as strong as the first season was. But I thought they really nailed what The Last of Us Part 2 feels like to play in this final episode tonally. I thought that Bella Ramsey really embodied that angry Ellie for the final little bit here. I loved the way that it ended. I thought just setting up where we're going to go from here was fantastic. And I thought they ended it very strong. I don't know if the season as a whole, when we look back on it, I will look as fondly back upon it as I did the first season. But I think that the way it ended, heading into season 3, I am going, okay, I'm very excited to see where we go from here and what we do with this story going forward.
What about you, Kahlief?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that I was hoping for was, in knowing kind of with the scuttlebutt of the online conversations around, like, we knew we were getting more of this series. We knew we were this was not gonna just end on season 2 and that be the finish of what we got from this story. And I think it landed, like you said, landed the plane. That's kind of the perfect way to kind of discuss it. I think, adding layers of complexity with characters that we have been hoping to see kind of come back and reemerge, with also, Bella also just knocking it out of the park, and Dina as well, and Jesse. I think a lot of those characters came across extremely well and extremely strong in their presentation and performances. And it did lay the foundation for what I feel is going to be a really interesting turn. And I think that turn is going to be cool, not only for folks who have been paying attention and have played the games and have the understanding of like what's coming next, but also for folks who have not been a part of the online gaming space. They have something new to chew on, which is going to be really cool to see how they kind of come to it. So overall, pretty sweet. I think they did a good job in terms of getting everything right.
Are you in agreement, Tom?
I'm not too sure. I'm worried I'm going to be the Debbie Downer of this episode. I didn't like overly dislike it, but I am quite mixed on how I feel about it. There are definitely things I really loved about how they adapted um aspects of the game, but they're also in a lot of ways I think this finale is kind of it was kind of what I was worried about with some of the issues that I was having with the season as a whole coming into it, and I think it is just kind of this culmination of these knock-on effects of the changes they made of what this finale now is, and I'm not totally in love with it. Like I said, there are some things that I think certainly some things that I think kind of improve on it, but also just I I I wonder how things go forward now with season 3. And we're using the plane analogy. I think we did land the plane. I think we might have lost a couple of engines or wheels along the way, but we did land it. So there is that. But yeah, I think it's hard because like I was listening to a podcast the other day being like it's very hard to be like and it's very easy to talk about something that you love, like vehemently, or something you dislike very vehemently. But this is, somewhere in the middle, and I'm just like being pulled in a lot of different ways on how I feel about it. So I'm kind of looking forward to like just getting into the nitty gritty and talking about it all. But yeah, just a bit mixed over on the finale.
I think I'm gonna err on Tom's side with this one because I think this episode reflects a lot of the feelings I have about this season in general, which is that, I love that it is The Last of Us and that it's telling the same story and it's bringing these things that we love to life. Love all of that. And I'm excited to watch the show every week and see how they do it. But for some reason, I kind of left the episode just feeling hollow. It like just didn't hit me in the same way that they did in the game. And I think that is a product of some of the a product of it being a TV show, but also some of the choices they've made to the story that just still confuse me. And we were talking to sort of Daniel, a guest on the show earlier in the season, and he was saying how we were concerned about the changes they were making, and he was like, well, it's the destination's going to be the same, but the journey's going to be different. And that's true, but I actually think the journey was really important here. And some of the things that they changed made it a lot less powerful. So that's kind of where I'm coming from on this episode and maybe a lot of the season overall, but we will talk a bit about that later. So let's get into exactly what happened and we'll stop and talk about certain things along the way. But this episode opened. So last week we had the flashbacks with Joel and we kind of then ended with Ellie returning to the theater. And so we get to see right up front what happened with Dina and Jesse. They went back to the theater. Jesse had to do some operating on Dina to get that arrow out of her leg. Looked very painful. And then Ellie returns later that night after her ordeal with Nora, and she goes and checks on Dina. And they kind of have this conversation where Ellie reveals what she did to Nora, how it kind of came quite easily to her. And she didn't get Abby's location, but she did get 2 words from her, which were whale and wheel, but she doesn't know what those mean. And then she also reveals to Dina why Abby and her group came to Jackson, which was that Joel did this thing many years ago where he killed all the Fireflies at the hospital in an effort to save Ellie from, them making a cure which would have killed her. And one of those people was Abby's dad. So she reveals this to Dina. She reveals that she knew about Joel killing them, and that sort of puts Dina in a spiral, and she says, we need to go home. So I'm interested in how you guys feel about Ellie revealing that Joel killed Abby's dad here, particularly for Dina to know about that, and even for Ellie to know about that, because I have replayed this part of the game recently, and I'm pretty sure Ellie knows that the Firefly, she knows that Abby was one of the Fireflies who came who they were Fireflies who came to kill Joel, but she didn't know that Joel killed her dad specifically, and that's the reason that she's there. So I'm interested how you guys feel about this revelation of information here.
It was weird because it felt disparate, and the thing that I want to have as a foundation for at least my recollection and analysis of stuff is I'm still trying to disconnect game parts from show parts, and that part is really hard. It's becoming a weird roadblock for me in some ways. Not the fact that I'm like looking at things and be like, well, why didn't you say that the same way that you did this? But it's like you said, Lauren, those spaces where the disconnects and the kind of new additions come in, it changes so much of the context of where those characters are thinking and what those mean. So to answer your question, it felt like Dina in that moment was doing what she kind of usually does at this point, right? Where she is the shoulder to lean on, but also the driver of Ellie's kind of moral compass in a lot of different ways, right? Where you see her vacillate a lot between trying to figure out, who am I becoming? But the thing that is the most frustrating about the who am I becoming question is, one, we as the audience kind of already know what she's become. And two, Ellie has no moments, at least so far, that even when she does the self reflection where she's like, I'm kind of becoming a terrible human being, she's like, I'm becoming a terrible human being, but I'm moving forward and I don't care and I don't give any other layers to that part of my brain space to even rationalize it. So that becomes really frustrating because you can tell Dina not only being pregnant and also being wounded is like, I'm going to take care of you, when Ellie should be taking care of Dina in this moment, right? Like this is your girlfriend, this is the mother of your child, air quotes, mother of your child. Like you're not giving her any space to be, a human being in these moments, and that's frustrating for me as a watcher of it, and seeing where those layers of information are coming, which are good informations to have, but also like in the context of what's happening doesn't really do anything for the mission, or it doesn't do anything for what is kind of most paramount for them really is their safety. So like it's a weird balance between the selfishness of Ellie and the compassion of Dina in that moment that I had a lot of struggle with.
I think that this moment here, by revealing that information to Dina, almost turns her into the version of Dina, I guess, that we've seen in the games. Because
Mm.
up to this point, she has been very like, I'm as gung ho on this mission with you as you are. We get her backstory a couple episodes ago where she talks about losing her family and she's ready to see the revenge. But I think having the context of like, oh, this wasn't just somebody wronging you, it is retaliation of a wrong that Joel committed against them. And it's just this, it's the Last of Us Part 2 thing, it's the cycle of violence. And I think that that is ultimately why this scene plays out the way that it does compared to the way that it does in the game, because now we can set Dina up to be, as we go forward, the version of Dina where she is like, we don't need to do this anymore. Like,
Mm-hmm.
especially as we get into like, no future spoilers right now, but as we get into that story and where these two characters go, she can say to Ellie, no, like we're happy now. Like we don't have to do that. And then we get where the rest of the season or rest of the series is going to go. So I see why they did it here, but I'm with you, Ka. I'm with a lot of, I think this is a big hang up of a lot of the game players, is just separating that, like this, they're two different stories. They're two different things at this point. And I would be interested to know, as somebody who hadn't ever touched The Last of Us anything coming into this, if they're having these same questions, or are they just like, wow, like what a crazy character moment between these two.
Yeah, I think my biggest kind of like my biggest hang up with this scene and some of the other scenes that we get with Ellie's character in this episode and kind of throughout the season is just kind of and I kind of harped on this point like throughout these whole recaps, and if you've listened to all of them, I'm sorry, I'm going to talk about it again. But it does feel like we just haven't had enough time on this like revenge descent. Almost, it feels like
Mm-hmm.
This show could have used 3 more episodes. Like
Mm-hmm.
if this had
yeah.
been a 10 episode season, I don't think we'd be
Mm-hmm.
having these issues.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, yeah, and I think it's because we do get like this, like these crises of faiths with Ellie on the path that she's gone on at this point. Like deciding that like they need to go back to Jackson. This happens in the game, but the fact that they kind of make it that Ellie flip flops quite a lot in what she wants to do. Up to this point, it just feels quite inconsistent. Where in the game, Ellie really is focused on her mission And you get those moments where obviously she questions what she's doing, but she is, she pushes on up until, day 3 kind of ends. But that kind of push and pull with Ellie's character feels frustrating because we just haven't got that bandwidth that we did in the game, which I think just doesn't feel as satisfying structurally. And I think that's just kind of why I don't think this hits as well and doesn't quite work as well as a story, and as in the way that they've told it in this episode.
Yeah, I totally was going to say the same thing, Tom. I think this was just another reason that Ellie shouldn't do what she's doing, because now even Dean is saying it's time to go home. And yes, this does happen in the game, but up until this point in the game, she's had very little wavering to the path, whereas we've seen a lot of the indecision up until this point in the show. So it feels like I'm kind of on Dean's side, like, yeah, we've done enough, let's go home. And then as the player, when you're playing as Ellie, you have no choice because you are with her on this path. You also don't know the answers about Abby, and you're still very driven to go and find them, whereas here we've had all the information laid in front of us. It's like frustrating because there was this moment in this scene where Ellie's like looking at herself in the mirror and her face is just so dead and empty, and I'm like, that's the Ellie from the game. Where has that been all season? So I think it was frustrating to get that moment and then to instantly have it sort of like deflated by Dina saying it's time to go home now. So yeah, let's continue. Where from here we go on to Seattle, day 3. And this is where Ellie and Jesse head out to find Tommy so that they can go home. And as the two travel, they talk, and Jesse guesses that Dina is pregnant. And when Ellie confirms it, he's very angry that this mission for vengeance has now put them all in danger and put them into this war zone where he's now about to be a father and he's at risk of dying. And a bit later on, they come across some of the dangers of this war zone. They see the WLF chase a young Seraphite and, take him away to kill him. And Ellie wants to get involved and save him like he's a kid. And Jesse says, no, this isn't our war. We're not getting involved. Like he has to survive now. And then we also see them go to the bookstore, which is where they're meeting Tommy, and he's not there yet. And they have another conversation where they kind of address the awkward love triangle that's kind of going on between Ellie, Jesse, and Dina. And Jesse comes out and admits that, yeah, he loves Dina, but not the way that Ellie does. And he proceeds to tell this story about the time that he really did feel like he was falling in love with this girl who came to visit Jackson. And he chose not to go with her and pursue that because he was committed to the community, because he's saying, Jesse, he's a really good person. But then this discussion is interrupted by some chatter on the radio that reveals a sniper has pinned down some WLF soldiers, and instantly they think this is probably Tommy. So they go up to get a vantage point to have a better view of what's going on. And this is where Ellie spots a whale and a wheel. It's the aquarium. That's where Abby is hiding out. So now Ellie instantly wants to go to the aquarium to find Abby. Meanwhile, Jesse is like, no, we have to go and save Tommy. That's what we're here to do. We're not doing this anymore. So this leads to a big argument between them where Jesse reveals that he never actually voted yes for her proposal to come to Seattle and enact this cycle of revenge. And he doesn't endorse it because it's not in the best interests of the community. And then Ellie got back with, fuck the community. My community was killed right in front of me. And so this is where Jesse and Ellie part. And Jesse just says, well, I really hope you make it. What do we think about all this character building between Jesse and Ellie? This is like a large chunk of the episode, and it distills a lot of what happens in day 3. We have, the reveal to Jesse that Dina is pregnant. We have the reveal that Jesse loved someone else. We also have the reveal that he didn't vote for Ellie in the community gathering. So does anybody want to touch on anything in there?
We also have the reveal that Shimmer is alive. We brought it up on the podcast.
I had a whole section dedicated to this.
They must have listened and edited the show in real time, because they go down the Controller Club questions we've had. 1, how did Jesse find them at the theater? He answers that question. 2, where is Shimmer? Exactly where we said she was. She was in the record store just eating grass, just doing her thing. So we got those questions out of the way. That's good. I'm happy. It is this whole sequence for me is one of the biggest culprits for why I think this show should have been 3 more episodes, because we should have had more time with Jesse. This is them building Jesse up so that when he gets shot in the head in half an hour, it hurts. And because we haven't really had a lot of time with Jesse, they hang out in the snowstorm earlier in the season. We see him building things with those amazing forearms, young Mizuno. Oh my gosh. But we don't get, I don't know, we don't really learn a lot about him. And so this is, let's dive into things. Let's see all the revelations we've had. Let's break him out, put him out on the floor, look at him before we topple this house of cards down.
This is my favorite version of Jesse in between the games and the
He's
show.
really good.
Like, besides young Mazzino just being just like really a fantastic actor, I think, you know, there are very few people in this entire world who are adults. And one of the youngest people in Jackson seems to be the most and smartest and most reasonable of all the people who are in this space, which I love for him, and for his character to get some more exposition and to be able to have so many of those moments. But that moment when they were in the building and looking over, Seattle, and looking at both the kind of two access points, at the two mission points to kind of to balance between of, are we going to go find, I just lost his name, his brother Tommy. Are we going to go find Tommy, or are we going to go continue on this mission, on this death march to nonsensical revenge? Right. And I loved Tommy in this moment because he said the thing that you would say if you had any sense in these moments. And he was like, I hope you're safe. I hope you come back. Because that would have been me too. I was like, fam, we have done everything that we can do to help you get to what you need to do so that you can feel better. We gave you therapy. We hooked you up. We got you fixed up in Jackson. And we've given you spaces to be able to flourish in this space. And you continue to botch it. And you continue to try to go in this direction that does nothing for anyone else but yourself. And I love that they talked about the balance between the selflessness and the selfishness. They did that moment where he put a mirror in front of her and was like, look, this is what this is. And if you're not paying attention, you've now wrapped all of us in this thing because we care about you, and you are not giving anyone else the same gravitas and understanding of, like, you are in this world where these zombies and all these, the infected are here, and you don't have to do this. We have set up a place where you can be safe, and you continue to not want to, buy into it because your father, your pseudo father, was killed. So I loved what they did here. I think they did a really good job of building those two characters up. I think a lot of the people who have been so down on Bella for her performances really got a good moment from her that showcased her doing really well and paying attention to, the ethos of that character. But man, I just was like, go Tommy, like, go Jesse, like, do your thing, man. Like, you deserve to get what you get out of this moment. And hopefully, you come back safe, which we see later on is not the case. But yeah, I wanted them to build him out more, and they weren't able to.
Yeah, I agree. I think this confrontation between Ellie and Jesse is probably like one of my highlights so far. It really, I liked, or even just like even the scene before, this whole idea of community that they're exploring and who's part of your community. And when Ellie says that line, let me tell you about my community, which like her community was Joel, that really hit so hard. And sort of, I was glad that we had that because it reoriented us with Ellie's mission, which is, yeah, she lost everything in that moment. And this is why we're here doing this. And this is why we can now endorse her, well, maybe not endorse her, but kind of see her side of the story, continuing to go after Abby. And was just like such a great example of how The Last of Us likes to play with those like moral conundrums, and really dig into those, like who's right, who's wrong, when there's really no clear answer. Unfortunately, like I think Let Me Tell You About My Community was such a great example of dialogue. And then right after that, she's like, oh, you think you're good and I'm bad? I'm terrible dialogue. So we've swung around
that. Yep. There's some big misses in there for sure from a dialogue perspective. No
but there
doubt.
were some good ones too. Like you get the perfect kind of like flip of the coin between these two characters where Jesse is so much like play by the head guy. What is the rational like thing to do? What is the best thing for the most amount of people? And Ellie is so very rash, does everything with her heart, goes in without thinking. And in that conversation, she's like, well, why didn't you go with this troop who was heading to Mexico, this Albertan girl that you fell in love with. And he's like, well, then who would have saved your ass here in Seattle however many years later? And it's like, yeah, like this is Ellie would have left with that group.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't. And yeah, I think that was one of the lines of the episode is, well, who'd save your ass here in Seattle? And yeah, you're right. You're totally right. If he had gone with them, they would be dead. They would all be dead.
Yeah, I pretty much echo everything you guys have said. Like, I think Jesse was definitely one of my highlights. I just think the thing I really like about Ellie and Jesse, obviously they come to like a bit of like a kind of mutual respect towards the end of the episode before he gets shot. But like pretty much the majority of the episode, they're at complete odds with each other. They're like, there's no getting on like at all. Earlier in the season, there's like a bit of like he's like training her or whatever, and there's like a little bit of like guess friendship there. But it was nice to see this just complete like two characters at odds with each other. And I think both young Mazzino and Bella did like a fantastic job playing that sort of relationship. So yeah, I kind of agree with Carl. Like, I think this version of Jesse, it might be like the superior version. I thought they did a great job bringing him to the screen.
So after this scene with Jesse, I think it's after this or at some point amongst all this happening, we actually do cut back to the WLF. We have another scene with Isaac and Sergeant Park where we kind of see their side of the story. And it's basically just to report that, hey, this big storm that's happening is converging. It's going to be a big deal and might, influence the mission we're about to undertake. And Isaac's kind of worried about something. He still doesn't know. He hasn't heard from Abby, doesn't know where she is. And now, adding to this, they've also lost touch with Owen and Mel. And Park notices that Isaac's quite attached to Abby, and she kind of questions why that is. And he then spells out that, she's supposed to lead the WLF after him, but now she's gone. So perhaps she will not be fulfilling that role. I don't know if anyone wants to touch on this. I quite like that they're adding some like leadership qualities to Abby. I just would have liked to have seen that in season 3 instead of being told it right here and now.
Yeah, I love Jeffrey Wright. He's one of my favorite actors just in general. But he is like, and it sucks because I'm like, I know he's gonna get more screen time in season 3, so I'm waiting for those moments to bubble up. But I think he's just so matter of fact, and I think the fact that he's doing that in this again in a dangerous world, you need someone who has the ability to kind of cut through noise. And Jeffrey Wright's character in Isaac in this very specific version of him is no nonsense. And he's like, look, I have a mission here, and you are all fucking up the mission by like not paying attention and not doing your jobs and not doing the things that I'm asking you to do. And it was cool to see him delegate that layer of responsibility to Abby, who, if you think about, the person who's kind of connected to all these layers, Park would be a really fantastic subordinate in that way, and be the kind of person who, and you see a small tinge in her eyes when he shares the notion that Abby is the one who's going to take over. There was a really interesting moment in her performance where she was like, that should have been me. Why are you picking her to do that thing when I've been your right hand person here for all this time? I'm hoping that they expand on that and showcase why Abby is supposed to be the new leader. But just like love every time Jeffrey Wright is on screen. He could not say a word and steal a scene every time he's on screen.
Yeah, he's electric. The way that he plays this, he's a ruthless. We've seen him do very terrible, brutal things in this season, but yet everything he says, I am kind of like, oh, I can see why people get behind you. Like, he just is so like, it's not even charismatic. It's like there's a magnetism to him in just the way that he says everything is so matter of fact. It's like, no, this is the way that our world works. And here is why we now have to go and brutally murder all of these people on this island. And I love the line he has about, we have hundreds of Mannies, and we have dozens of Mels and Owens. We have one Abby. And it's just like, you're right. Yeah, you're right. I believe you, simply because the way that he delivered that line, I didn't need any more information. And I think that like his story, I loved every time he was on screen. I am leaving this season going, man, I wanted more. I think with a lot of these storylines, we cannot render a verdict on any of it until season 3 and potentially season 4 have come out and have been fully realized.
Yeah, I think, I'm in total agreement. Like, I think when Jeffrey Wright he's the best. He's so good. But yeah, it's like I would have loved like to see more of him throughout the season. At the same time, it's like there's also a lot of other stuff I'm like that needed that bandwidth, like we kind of been saying, like that needed those like extra episodes or whatever. But yeah, like I'm excited to see like more of him next season, hopefully. But yeah, it's just nice to get a little glimpse into what he's up to in this moment. It was cool.
I like that they set him up early, that he was more present in this season than he would have been in this part of the game, because it's like enticing to be like, I want to see what he does next. And we are definitely going to see more of him next season. So that was probably one of the good choices that they made to incorporate him more in season 2, I think. But we only get this one scene with him because next we're back with Ellie. And we see that she has spied some boats on the pier, and she's considering taking out the WLF guards who are there until they are themselves picked up by a convoy of many boats who Isaac is on one of these boats, and they head off towards a mysterious island in the distance. So with them gone, Ellie can take the boat, and she starts to head towards the aquarium until this massive like swell that the storm is whipping up capsizes her, and she ends up on a beach where she is captured by Seraphites and basically is prepared to be hung and gutted like they've done to so many other of the WLF. And it's all about to happen until a alarm or the sound of an alarm happens in the distance, and the Seraphites have to drop everything and head back to their village and basically say, just leave her, let her go. So Ellie just gets back up, goes, finds the boat, and off she goes to the aquarium again. I have to stop here. Why did we do this? What did we do here? What was this for? What are
It
we
was in
doing?
the game. They cut it from the game, apparently.
I've heard about this, and I'm like, that's cool that you could include something that was cut from the game, but if I'm being honest, this would make sense. It would make more sense to have this in the game than it does to have it here, particularly when you consider all the game elements that they cut to get to this point. The fact that they would include this one instead of some of those others really confuses me. And it didn't really, like, I don't know, it felt like it served no purpose. And it was also super unrealistic, the fact that she would be like washed up totally fine, the boat was fine, that she would
Washed
be
up beside
captured.
the boat.
Yeah. And also, I think the thing that really did it for me was just like the Saved by the Bell moment, where it's like, oh, it's something in the distance. Happens at the exact moment that they have to leave, and like, we can't be bothered to kill her. Just leave her
With her
So,
weapon. Leave her with the
yeah.
gun on the ground 10 feet away.
It's happened
Even
more than
ugh,
once in this season. It
ugh.
just frustrates me. Like, if you're going to do this moment, do it, but do it right.
Also, like, I'm gonna take my brain out of my head for a moment. I'm gonna put it on the table and say the thing that I understand that this series is asking for a huge level of suspension of disbelief. Again, roll up on the shore with the boat right next to you. Magically, these boats that have been here forever all have gas. Magically, like all those pieces, but like again, one of the things that has been, and I don't remember if this was a sentiment that happened during the discourse of the game being released and people putting out reviews and things about Ellie's character and all those things that go along with it. But the thing that has consistently been a running narrative in my own head is Homegirl is like 16, like 120 pounds wet. And she is the most, I'm going to kill everything in sight and everyone in sight. My brain, after seeing not only this one caravan of people roll up on this beach, roll up on the dock, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, there's 2 people here. Sure, you could potentially take those people out. Then a big ass ship comes with like 15 dudes on it. And she's like, I'm still going to figure this out. And then another 10 boats come through with like 15 more dudes.
I thought it was
I still
comical.
have
All the lights
revenge.
turning on. There's like 25 boats all of a sudden just pop up. It was like there's a scene in the new Mission Impossible movie where Tom Cruise in the water and all these heads just start popping up around him. And it felt like that. I was like, what's going on?
I'm like, your dumbass is gonna try to kill all these people? Like, what is happening? Like, where the layers that you have to kind of like remove to be like, I'm not gonna go back to get backup, even because again, Jesse has abandoned you at this point. You still have a radio. You are still in contact with Jesse in some form or fashion. I think they both either had radios at that point, or only Ellie had one. But you still know where everyone is held up. You didn't make any effort to go and say, maybe we should rethink this and maybe come back with a better plan, as opposed to that. And then it's like, go into the ocean and then Mark Wahlberg yourself in that, whatever that movie was, and fall into the ocean and crazily not die. Like, those are the moments where I was like, all right, team, like, I know we're not dumb, but that was like dumb. That was like real stupid. That was like real stupid. Come on, y'all.
What
So,
I think would have worked instead of doing any of the island stuff is she doesn't need to go there. She can get washed up. The wave can hit her like it does in the game, knock her out of the boat. She pops up, and then what do? You have her look up. Oh, look, it's the aquarium. I can believe that. I can be
right.
like, okay, the aquarium is right there. She got in the boat. She's headed towards it, and now she's been drawn. And behind her, as you're doing this, what do? Pops of fire on the island, and then everyone goes, "What's going on there? I wonder if we'll ever find out." And then next season, we probably will find out. We didn't need to go there. I see why they did it, but it's that, Lauren, it's that over-explaining thing we've been talking about. It's like, no, we need to show everything and tell the audience everything that's happening, because we cannot assume that they will understand that bad things are happening on this island without Ellie going there.
Yeah, you're right. It's like I had already connected enough dots that they were going to the island and things were probably going down there given all the
Because we get the
preparation.
fireballs. We get them like minutes later.
Yeah, and also Isaac had set it up in his speech in the scene earlier that something was going down tonight. And you could probably assume, like, for people who don't know that we're going to go back and revisit that later, you're probably like, wow, something big happened there. But I don't really need to think about it right now because we're here with Ellie. And to sort of drag her into the action and then drag her out of it for such a brief moment, it couldn't have been more than 2 minutes, this scene. It was really strange.
Like the little kid
Yeah.
being the one to make the call, though. He's like,
I like
she
that part.
dies.
I like that part. That was great.
Yeah, it's interesting because they also do they do some setup, which we'll talk about, I guess, like a bit later, and even like Easter eggs and stuff. But like stuff that they are setting up, like laying the groundworks for things we'll revisit in season 3. But they don't. It's like quite subtle, and it's kind of like in the background, or it's like a shot, and they don't really linger on it. But like, okay, we're like teasing this, and this might come into play later if you like remember back to this part in season 2. You might be like, oh, they were teasing that up. They were teaming that up. But yeah, I think this was a bit, you're just heavy-handed of like, we didn't need to like completely diverge this storyline to like, I think it is like my biggest issue with the season as a whole is just a momentum thing and a pacing thing. And it feels like we didn't need to like go on this roundabout goose chase to get to what we actually need to get to, which is the aquarium at the end of the day.
When we're already pressed for time.
Yeah, exactly.
That
yeah.
and weirdly, like the payoff that I think that they were trying to go for, because I'm the weirdo who watches the post show wrap up thing that they do, is the, you know, when the kid was in the garage when Ellie and Jesse were hanging out, and then that person got captured, and it was, you know, here's your humanity moment. We're supposed to go save this kid, and they don't because Jesse's smart and is not an idiot. And then you have that contrasting moment when you're on the island and little kid is like, thumbs down, you know, we gotta end this lady. It doesn't even give Ellie the moment to have that introspection. You know, of course she's captured and she's about to be hurt, so you're in fight or flight mode. But like, even in that moment where she gets away, there isn't any space to be like, oh, they're different than what I expected. And maybe that's the thing that comes later, right? Maybe there has to be some more connective tissue to the Seraphites anyway, but like that moment that was supposed to join those two ideas of the humanity that I thought was here is not here anymore. We are in the actual Wild West. Doesn't get any payoff at all. And I'm like, so that makes that seem even more like, why would you do this for the sake of doing it, kind of thing. I was like, all right, that doesn't make sense, but keep going.
I think I just would have liked, that's a great point. And I think I would have also just liked to see Ellie do something instead of have things happen for her. Like, like you say, miracle boats just happen to be on the pier and she's going to maybe kill those guys. I would have liked to see her do that because really we've talked about it. The body count isn't really that high in the show at this point, where it really is in the game. And that kind of drives home like how committed she is to the path. And things just seem to happen kind of a little bit too easily for her in this episode. Even like the fact that she managed to see the wheel and the whale and put it together at the same time, you know, like there wasn't a lot of like maybe we could have gone to the map and tried to figure it out, and like that would have been a more active action from her. So yeah, the scene just totally frustrated me and was probably really took me out of the episode, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But after this scene, we do get to the aquarium, which I have to say, shout out to the Vancouver Aquarium. I would know that for you anywhere. They did film there.
I was wondering,
And
is it the Vancouver Aquarium? Because I was
yeah, it
looking
is.
around and I'm like, how did they do this? They shut it down for a night and take it over?
Yeah, they did. Yeah. I remember when they were filming there. I don't think all of the scenes, like probably the hallway scenes and stuff, are interiors, but the foyer scene with the jellyfish, that's definitely
That's
Vancouver.
cool.
That was pretty cool. But yeah, inside the aquarium, it's very creepy, it's very empty, but eventually Ellie hears voices and she comes upon Owen and Mel who are fighting, and they do mention the name Abby, which kind of gets Ellie's attention, and so she comes up, holds them at gunpoint, and demands to know where Abby is, because of course she's at where Abby is supposed to be, and Abby is not there. And she promises that Owen and Mel don't have to die if they can just mark Abby's location on the map. She tries to use Joel's map trick where two people mark the same point on the map, but it never really gets that far because Owen decides to pull a gun on her, so Ellie retaliates, shoots him in self-defense, and he dies instantly. But unfortunately, the bullet also clipped Mel, and she's now bleeding out from the neck. And right before Mel dies, she asks Ellie, like she makes a request of Ellie. She says, "I need you to cut it out." And she reveals that she's pregnant, and she wants Ellie to make an emergency C-section. She tries to instruct Ellie on what to do, but it's all happening very quickly. She's losing blood very fast, and eventually it's too late, and Ellie's just left crying over all of the destruction that she has caused until Tommy and Jesse arrive to help her a little bit later on. So the whole aquarium sequence is the crux of this whole finale, and I know that they've changed it slightly, so I want to know what you think about those changes to this scene.
Yeah, I kind of want to follow up on your point um, that you just made about kind of Ellie's agency throughout this episode and how she kind of isn't really doing a lot. This scene, obviously, she kills two people, but the way it happens, I think, is kind of what my issue with Ellie's character and a lot of the season is that her agency is kind of taken away. Obviously, she kills Owen, but in the game, she very purposely kills both of them. And then it's only revealed afterwards that Mel is pregnant, and obviously that's a horrible thing to happen. But I feel like the fact that it is almost like an incidental thing that kind of Ellie stumbles upon, it kind of, I don't know if this was intentional or not, but it reminds me of like the Vita girl's death in part two on day two, which is kind of like a very clumsy like thing that happens. Like she like almost like accidentally kills this girl, and it feels like they kind of conflated that with this scene where it is almost like an accident where Mel dies. But at this point in the story, I feel like because of how kind of one track minded Ellie is on, and how one track minded she is on the path, to have this be a accidental death in this way, I feel like removes her kind of responsibility of the actions that she's making and the choices that she's making. And I don't know if that fully sits right with me in terms of the approach. I think the way, like going on to like Mel's death, like I think that performance was like incredible from Ariella Barra. I think that was an amazing like show from her. But the context around it and the way they kind of approach it kind of takes some of that oomph away from me in terms of the overall story they're trying to tell about Ellie and what they're trying to say about this character and how she relates to the overall narrative.
Yeah, I think the problem I have with that particular scene, and again, it's a through line that I will probably continue to talk about during our recap here, is what I loved about Ellie in the game was, although she was very she was hell-bent on revenge, she was competent in the ways that she was going about the things that she was going about. She was trained by other people in the space. Like I love that moment in the beginning of the season with Jesse kind of teaching her how to fight properly. But like they fast forward so much that she doesn't have those moments of oh, well, I'm getting better at these things, so I'm actually learning how to be competent in a world that is brutal and is going to do things to me that I don't want to happen to me. And it winds up being like, in this moment, every time that, well, not even in this moment, during the season, many times throughout the time that she is kind of given that moment to be a thoughtful executioner, if you want to kind of mash those two parts up together, she's terrible at interrogation. She doesn't ever get information that she needs. And she kind of, again, stumbles upon these things through happenstance and through other people kind of just being in those moments. Like, okay, the aquarium is huge. You luckily found these two people in this one room. Okay, that's cool. But then the thing that you were trying to get from them, you still didn't even get. Like, you didn't even do the proper like due diligence of like really trying to figure out a way to use the momentum that you have and the anger that you have to kind of convey, I am not playing around right now. Like, yes, a gun in your face is very much that. But I think there's just so many small pieces where she does this back and forth between two versions of herself that doesn't really happen in the game and doesn't get enough exposition in the show, right? It just doesn't give the layers of, well, are you still this young woman who is trying to learn about herself and understanding that, you know, you are doing this mission and you have these moments, but you are not ready. She's always ready, but always at the wrong time. And I think those parts are really hard to kind of grok all the time.
I think the point you made about her being competent is such a great point, because if you are tracking the arc, it should be that, yeah, she's a little bit rusty to begin with, but as she starts to go further down the path and starts killing more and starts having to do more, she becomes more competent at that. But, you know, like, she's just gone and tortured Nora, and she said about how easy it was for her. From here, she should actually be pretty good at getting the information that she needs, or at least have a step up. Whereas if anything, she's more shaky and nervous than anything. So it is like, yeah, it's kind of just all pretty messy in Ellie's character arc. And I believe the way it happens in the game is that yeah, she finds Owen and Mel, she holds them up, and I think Mel attacks her. So it is sort of a self-defense maneuver, but she does kill her, and then she shoots Owen, and she drives the gun into Owen's neck, still asking where Abby is. So she's still, that hasn't even cared, you know, that she's killed these two people. She wants to know where Abby is, and then she finds out about Mel, and that's then suddenly like what triggers her to have the breakdown. I wonder what would have happened if, instead of doing this emergency C-section, she's asking Mel where Abby is. Still to that driving home, this is still her mission. But I guess with the ordering of how they've done things there, it doesn't really work. Yeah.
And no Alice, no dog. I thought that
Thank God.
after we saw Nora last week or 2 weeks ago, I thought we'd maybe turned a corner with Ellie, and I don't know if it was an issue of like, we don't want this character to be so irredeemable and unlikable as the main character of our HBO TV show. But I don't want to say I would have liked her to have seen her kill a dog. I do think that would have done a lot for the character, though, because that is like, if I'm a viewer, if I'm Gabby, my wonderful spouse, sitting next to me watching this for the first time, Ellie isn't 100% irredeemable yet at this point. And if she drops down in there and is attacked by a German Shepherd and she has to take it out and then murders Owen and then kills pregnant Mel, I'm going, okay, there is no coming back for her. Whereas this it does feel very happenstance. I agree with you, Tom. The whole scene, incredibly performed by everyone in the room. The Mel stuff of her like gripping to life, telling her how to do it, it's deeper than you think. It's just like, oh my gosh, like, I can't wait to see more of this character in season 3. But it does feel, when she dropped in there and saw them, it didn't feel like she wanted to kill them. And I don't know if this version of the character even did. Whereas in The Last of Us Part 2, this Ellie wants to murder everyone associated with Abby. Whereas I think if Abby were there and the two of them were as well, she would have just killed Abby and got out of there as fast as she could.
Yeah, that's a great point, because like later on in the episode, skipping forward a little bit, Jesse mentions about how he reckons Ellie would burn the whole world down if something ever happened to him. And I just don't get that impression from Ellie, because she hasn't really done that too
Not
much
this Ellie?
this season. Yeah, So I just don't really get that. They've kind of softened her a lot for this, which is a shame.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if it was the concern about having her kill a pregnant woman that made Mel become collateral damage. You can't help but wonder about that. But yeah, at this point, like Ellie and you as the player, even it's simple things as like you've upgraded yourself to be this weapon of destruction, but there's none of that in the TV show. And I don't want to like advocate for there being more people that she's killed, but I just think it was necessary for this story that they're telling.
Mm-hmm.
You
I
have to
agree.
make her so irredeemable that when you make the flip we're about to make, you're like, okay, now I see this person as a villain. And then when we switch things back later, you can look at both of these characters and be like, wow, I see how both of these people got sent on the path that they were on. Now what do we do when they clash one last time?
I think the thing that is I love the takes you all just shared because they all are spot on. I think the thing that hearing you all say that, the thing that comes back to me is I've been struggling with the idea of do I like this version of Ellie throughout this entire season, right? And trying to weed out the chaff from the mean people online about Bella, right? And her performances, which again I think are fine. The thing that I'm coming to grips with is I don't like this version. Like I said something online the other day that I was like, when Joel died, and they talked about it in the previous episode with the flashbacks and stuff, and I was like, I said online, I was like, this version of Ellie doesn't deserve Joel, right? Because Joel was trying, and we didn't get to see a lot of the trying parts in the game. But the thing that is messing with me with this version of Ellie, who I didn't like in the game at all, I don't like this version even more because she is so conflicted. And it doesn't seem right for who this character is and what her mission is and what the said mission was. It's not even the fact that this is like being imposed upon her. This is a decision she has decided to make and is waffling in a world where you can't waffle. And that part to me is frustrating. It's not even a dislike of what she's doing in the grand scheme. I'm like, if you say you're about it, go do the thing that you say you're about when you're trying to do, and like go. But like all these minuscule kind of like deviations in who this character is, this makes it really frustrating with all the context that we know and what they keep trying to do with this character that we kind of come to know and understand at this point.
I think in the game you can like the game Ellie, and if it had been presented exactly that way in the TV show, you can waffle one time, and that waffling comes right at the end of this moment. It comes right when you
Mm-hmm.
reveal Mel is pregnant too, and you have all of that wash away, and she go, oh wait, like these are people too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all you can do. Whereas if you're going back and forth the entire time, it's like you have no quest. Like you have no great all powerful meaning that you are going towards. You have an idea of something you want to do, but you don't really even 100% know if you want to do it. And like as
Mm-hmm.
an audience member, you are sitting there going, well, why should I buy into this mission if you're not even bought into this mission?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, unfortunately, I feel like the way it kind of is flip flopping and waffling on these points is like it does to me at least reflect on kind of the storytellers and the filmmakers doing this because it feels like they don't want to commit to a path and they don't want to trust the audience to be like, okay, we're gonna tell the story. Ellie's gonna do some messed up stuff, but like trust me, like it serves the story and it is ultimately worth it for what this story is ultimately trying to tell. And I feel like they just it rings to me that they just didn't have faith in what they wanted to do with the story, and it just comes off as very wishy-washy in like the final product.
Mm-hmm.
But they did it with Joel
Yep.
in season 1, right? They had a character who they built up as you buying in, and he does some crappy things, and you're like, man, but then by the end he does a terrible, awful thing, and you have to sit there and go, but I really like that Joel. Like but I really like that character.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't want to do it with Ellie in season 2, and I find that just it's bizarre to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is frustrating.
It's a good point. I did want to bring up another small thing that's slightly related, but there's been some debate of whether Owen is the father of Mel's baby, which I'm sure we're going to find out next season, but it's kind of kept intentionally obscure. And I wonder what you guys think about. Obviously, we weren't supposed to find out now, but I think in interviews surrounding this, like the actress and the showrunners have all been really cagey on whether Mel and Owen are together and whether he is the father. And I wonder how we'd feel about if they changed that.
I wonder if she's maybe just saying that because, I mean, we get a bit of a glimpse of Owen and Abby's relationship, but I think adding that extra element of that there is this kind of triangle between the three of them for like non-game players, maybe they don't want to spoil that yet. Because the impression to me, it was like I just kind of assumed that Owen was daddy. But I don't know. Maybe they will change it. I'm not sure.
Well, because at this point in the game, you know that Owen is the dad because he tells Abby right at the beginning of the story, but we didn't get that in this version. So it is very much a mystery to the audience. And it is probably something like, oh, we'll just wait till season 3 to find out. But us game players, for them to come out and be like, he might not be the father, or hinting at that is kind of like...
So they want you to watch season 3, Lauren. That's the idea.
Yeah,
I want them, if they're going to do that, just do the real cheesy version where he puts his hand on her belly. As she, you know, his hand falls on her belly as he dies.
Oh my God.
My baby.
My baby.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, the final portion here. So we have the group returning to the theater. Ellie's very much in shock. And later, she comes out to find Jesse and Tommy planning a route home to Seattle. And Ellie basically has to come out and say that she's coming. She has to come to terms with the fact that Abby gets to live now. And then Jesse and Ellie have a bit of a moment of reconciliation where, you know, she thanks Jesse for coming to save her and, you know, says he's a good person. He says, you know, Ellie would have done the same for him, which she agrees with. And then they're interrupted by sounds of some commotion inside the foyer. And as soon as they go through the door, Jesse shot clean in the head and dies. And the perpetrator is none other than Abby, the person we've been looking for the entire season. And she also has Tommy on the ground at gunpoint. Who knows where Dina is at this point? She's preparing to shoot Tommy for killing Owen and Mel until Ellie comes clean, says, he's not your guy, it was me. I'm the one who's been hunting you this whole time. I'm the person you were looking for even back then at the hospital. And so now Abby points the gun at Ellie and says, you know, she recognizes Ellie. She's like, I let you live and you wasted it. And then she fires the gun and we cut to black. We don't know what happens.
Does she fire the gun?
We don't know.
There's a bang.
Someone fires a gun.
Fires a gun.
There's a bang. Could have been lightning. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was Mel's baby.
There is the ghost has come back.
Redemption.
I let you live. I'm back.
This is for Dad.
Yeah, I'm down for it. Anyway, sorry.
No, that was great. But yeah, that's not all. We do actually cut to then Abby being woken up by Manny, and we see her explore this new space, which is the home base of the WLF. They've set up in this giant stadium. They've a very big operation going on. And then we see the title card, Seattle, Day 1. And then we cut for real. So this was a great theory from you last week, Klein. You called it pretty much exactly that.
Shot for shot.
That they would set up the story for season 3 by revealing we're now going to show Abby's side of the story. But let's break all this down. We have the theater scene, R.I.P. Jesse, welcome back Abby. Where do we want to go?
That's a lot.
It was Abby's most kind of boss moment in the show, in the entirety of her being kind of, you know, shown and getting screen time. Like, it was the moment where I was on Team Abby for like, all right, Team Abby, let's go. Like in a weird way of like swing, like, okay, so now we know that this is like the stakes are real high. And I think it's again because of that decisiveness, right? It wasn't like Jesse runs through the door and they have a conversation. Like, no, you just got shot. Right? Is a showcase of her willingness and her understanding of the world that they live in. And again, that's like teachings from Isaac. That is understanding that the mission is you know, Joel killed my father and I have this revenge in my own life that I want to get rid of and get through. And again, like, she shows restraint to Tommy, who is still in the space, because she also understands tactically that it makes sense to be able to not kill him yet, because she hears other voices in the room. She knows Dina is already there, and I'm probably sure that she knows that she might be pregnant at that point too, because, you know, you're probably showing at that point at least a little bit. So it winds up being this moment where, you know, the surprise and the shock and awe of Jesse dying was really, really sad, but also fitting for him to have an honorable death in the way that he did, because he's been saying over and over and over, take your ass home. It's time to go home. And then he doesn't make it home because, again, of them not paying attention and not being smart enough in the moment to do what they're supposed to do. So I think it lands in a really fantastic way. I think that was great. I think you got a really good look at Ellie having that, that moment of also understanding now the stakes are high in an even bigger way, not only because the person I just saw who I love is dead, but also I have now run out of options. There isn't a lot of way to wiggle out of this moment in some ways. So I think it does really good service for the kind of ramp up to the end scene that I think was brilliant. I love that thing. I love the way they showcase that. Like, I'm sure they, we're going to talk about like Easter eggs and stuff. That one scene where she's reading the book and the way it's facing the camera, I was like, yeah, there's something there. You can tell by the way it's shot. But it gives that moment for Abby as well to be like, I run this, and even if I don't, I have backup in a way that all of these other crews don't. And that was cool to be able to see that, but then also made you think, like, again, dumbass, why are you going to fight all these people when they have the army and the military over these walls? So I love the way it ended. I thought it was really smart. I think the way that they kind of combined all those pieces together was really, really good. And that one cut to black was really smart from a storytelling perspective, because you don't know, until you find out that the baby shot her. But we'll figure it out.
Yeah, it's funny
Season
you bring
3's
up
biggest twist.
the like tactical capability of Abby in this moment, Ka, because you just mentioned how like incapable it feels like Ellie is and has been up to this point, and it is just so different because you walk in that room and she's got a hostage, he's been shot in the leg, Dina is somewhere probably being held up by a character who they haven't cast yet, and she doesn't ask questions the second that door opens. She just shoots. It doesn't matter who's coming through that door. They're getting shot in the neck. And so I thought that like they did a great job of showing how terrifying she is again, and then making the audience who doesn't know what's about to happen. I think that when I mentioned it last week about my theory where it was like, I think we're going to wake up with her. I think we're going to get that Seattle Day 1 title card. It's a great way to set up like, hey, that person who just shot Jesse in the neck, it's all about her now. And you've got to like, now you have to walk a day in her shoes. And I think that I'm almost more excited for season 3 now than I was coming into season 2, because having known like kind of how shaky season 2 felt in places, just knowing how capable Caitlin Dever like in this role is in this little bits I've seen, like I am so excited to see what this character, what she does with this character, and hope that the writing is there to back it up.
Yeah. I've just written down, the only thing I've written down for the scene is Caitlin Dever can rock a leather jacket, because when she came in, like, she looks sick. I'm not like, obviously.
First thing I thought was Tomb Raider. Like, she could be a kick-ass like treasure hunter in that leather jacket. Let me tell you,
she can do an Australian accent. Can she do a British one? I mean, it's comparable. Maybe I could see that. But
Cassie
no,
Drake. Actually, I won't say anymore.
Oh, chill. I haven't played that one yet. No, I think like I know I've talked about how conflicted I was and kind of mixed on this episode I was up until this point, but like this scene, I think I was like, oh, I think I might be back, because when Caitlin Dever comes through that door, just her presence in that moment and like just the way that seems blocked and the interplay between Ellie and Abby that in that scene, I thought was just so well done. I mean, it is pretty faithful to how it happens in the game. So I think that's probably part of why. But I think that was really well handled, and I think just the small glimpses, because obviously like Caitlin Dever's not in the season that much, but the small glimpses we've seen of Abby get me so excited for what we will get in season 3. I do wonder like how people are going to take that day 1 Seattle thing, and whether they're going to be like, oh, like
I've seen a lot of confusion, Tom. I've seen
People
a lot
are
of confusion.
confused.
They're like, what do you mean day 1? It's like,
Yeah.
well, we just Did you not watch the show? Like, we had title cards. Yeah, they're like, day one. The first thing Gabby said to me when it ended, she was like, "How many years later is this?" And I was like, "What?"
Seattle
What do you
Day
mean?
1, 10 years later.
Yeah.
17 years after the fact.
No, but Tom, I think it is. I was with you. I was like, because this plays out exactly the same as the game. They didn't fix what wasn't broken. And that's kind of great about when they do that in the show. So I was with you. I was like, this is great. This is an awesome scene. They've hit every beat that they need to, but they didn't change anything. And that's why we're having struggles so much with this season, is like the things they've changed have lessened the impact, whereas they didn't change anything here. So it hit exactly the same. And it was great. I was like, where has this been all season? And so I think like they did what they needed to and they pulled it off effectively. I do wonder though, like, I'm still hung up on the fact that we know Abby's motivations and that we've known them this entire time. Because how cool would it be to have had this sudden, like, you hate Abby the entire time. You hate her now even more for killing Jesse. Boom, we're now telling her half of the story and we now get to find out why she did what she did. That's the opening in season 3. We're going to learn about her. And so I think that's one moment of the revelation of Abby's backstory in the season in episode 2 has been, I think, had ripple effects that have impacted so many things.
I also one of the things that I think came across too, and this has been a thing that's been stuck in my craw for a beginning part of the series, when we found out who was being cast as Abby and all of those pieces, and I think the audience and the community was very up and down on that too. Like, she's too skinny to like all of those parts of it. And as much as I am rooting for a buff version of Abby that we're not going to get, because I think there's an important layer to not only the storytelling of what that means for the growth of that character and the toughening up of that character through a really hardship and a hard thing. Her shooting Jesse in the face as soon as she walked through the door kind of gave them an ability to toughen her up in a way that was necessary. And I think actually gives them more space to have those layers for this character, this version of Abby, than it would be if you did a character swap and it was like, all right, we got you up to this point, and then we're going to do an actress swap with someone who's a little bit more buff and fit to kind of like play out that layer of it. It'll be interesting to see how they kind of give her those moments in this season 3 to showcase that layer of learning what it was like to be competent in the apocalypse, and what was it like to become a soldier when you were a child and you were just taught to be able to do this through the power of anger, right? That stuff will be really cool to see how they bridge that out. But I also wonder if now they try to push it in a way that doesn't feel organic, if that makes sense, where it's like, how do you do the montage of the Rocky montage for her, right? Which is, how do you get her to that space where you're like, no, I am the person who I am today because of all the things that I've been taught throughout day 1 through where they wind up leading to. So that'll be cool to see how they cross that bridge once they get to it.
I agree. And I think they've started setting that up, because the thing with Abby is when you come to meet her in the game and when you eventually start playing as her, it's like she is at that level of competence that we were talking about that Ellie needs to be at when we meet her, because she's enacting her revenge. And then from there, she takes what she's learned into her next phase of her journey, which is some kind of redemption. And I think they've started to layer in, like, she obviously doesn't have the physique, which was, people were concerned about this because she became the weapon that she needed to become to enact her revenge. And I think they're shifting that slightly to be like, she's actually got this power of leadership and some kind.
She's a weapon in a different way. Like, she's crafted
Exactly.
herself into a different kind of weapon, being this like leadership figure.
Yeah. And now we're going to see what that looks like in her side of the story, and eventually how she uses what she did for revenge to do something else, like to be like to redeem that side of herself. And so it's interesting seeing like at that point in time when Ellie meets Abby, like that version of Abby is who Ellie should be now, meeting Abby, because when they do like have the confrontation, which we know they're going to have, they're on equal footing. Like in the game, Abby obviously has the physical power of Ellie, which makes it very scary, but Ellie has the strength and wiliness and just the dedication, the rage, which we just haven't seen from Bella's version of the character.
Saw it once. That Nora scene, I will say,
Yeah,
like that
right.
was
Yeah.
part two out. That was part
Yeah.
two Ellie for sure. But
Yeah.
it's other than that, it hasn't been there.
Yeah.
Hmm.
We shall see. I guess the question I have for you, Lauren, especially as a person who's running the docket, do you feel like I think one of the through lines again in our discussion has been how much space do you give for story, right? This season could have used a couple more episodes. In a weird way, looking at the kind of 7-show format that they have for this, I don't see how you get through all of those layers with a season that is mostly just focused on that section of the story, right? Where again, unless they dig into other layers of it, which I think, of course, Abby's story makes a ton of sense. The building of the WLF makes a ton of sense as a storyline. Isaac then becoming a person who gets his prominence in that space, having learned from his predecessor as well. And then you start, that's already 3 episodes or 4 episodes right there. Then you have another 3. Where do you think those other layers, what do you think will be the other ingredients that kind of come into this other part of the season that we missed already? Or at least that bridges out or broadens out that conversation for the rest of the world?
For season 3, like Abby's half of
Mhm.
the story?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think comparatively, Ellie and Abby have very similar structures of days from what we've seen. And so there's like, but I think Abby's going the other direction, whereas Ellie's ramping up for vengeance, Abby's ramping down. And I think there's so much they're going to do. We're going to go see the parts that we didn't get to see. There was a teaser of the crane in the background in Seattle. Like that's going to be a big set piece. We obviously we'll get into like spoilers for what happens in Abby's half, but we're going to meet Yara and Lev. We did question whether we would meet Lev in this part of the story last week, but as somebody rightly pointed out, Lev is not actually introduced in this part of the story. Like you don't see him at this point in this show. So I now understand why they maybe are going to save that for next season. But that relationship, I think, is definitely going to be fleshed out. Maybe we'll see some like more backstory focused episodes on them. That could be interesting to like get into the minds of the Seraphites as much as we're going to get into the minds of the WLF. And I definitely think we're doing that with the Prophet. I think we are 100% seeing the formation of the Seraphites through this Prophet. They had another really interesting tease in this episode where it's like Ellie notices the mural, the Feel Her Love mural, and she's like, oh, is there more than one of them? That's super interesting to me. What does that mean? Were there more than one prophet? Were there multiple prophets at once? Like, I think there's definitely some really interesting stuff that they can pull out in Abby's side of the story that will like flesh out those episodes.
Man, shame the Prophet got shot in
it was the baby.
Yeah, this baby's on a rampage.
It's the baby.
Man.
It's the baby.
Season 4 is the baby's story. That's Mark it down, guys.
I want the baby in the boat, just floating in the boat as the beginning of the game.
Oh my god!
That's why Neil doesn't want to talk about part 3. Yeah,
it opens and the baby pops up and he's got a soother. He pops it out. He's like, "Hey, you're probably wondering how I got here."
Me and JJ are at daycare together. It's gonna be great.
Oh, amazing!
Oh, jeez. Yeah, I think the one thing I'm wondering that they do in season 3, that we talked about like how they kind of revealed Abby's or motivation for killing Joel. And the only thing that I can think of why they wanted to reveal that so early is that maybe we get more of her relationship with her dad than we did in the game, because it really is just that one scene in part 2 that you have between Abby and her dad. So I wonder if maybe we will just get like a flashback episode like we did with episode 6, just focus on Abby and her father, and we get like even more just seeing what this guy was about. Maybe there was even more to him. Maybe he was literally the best guy ever. He was doing so much, and that's why it's like it hurts even more.
He already had a gear ready to go. He just
needed the insurance.
It was more of a ceremonial thing, if anything.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. But I don't know. That's the only way I could see, like, if we get more of Abby's father.
Yeah. Do we want more of Abby's father, though? Like, for real?
Well, this is the thing. I don't know if we need it.
Well, now that we know,
right?
Why do we need it?
I know everything I need to know about him.
Yeah, he stood still.
Yeah. He held the knife at Joel for one split second.
He takes a mean bullet.
Longer if you wait. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess, yeah. I mean, I can see that again, like the way this HBO series is being told. I absolutely can see that they would do something like that, even just for symmetry, right? Of just like giving you the
exactly.
thing to kind of to balance it out. But like, yeah, you went to the PTA meetings. That's cool. That's great. But
Yeah.
like, I don't care about you, Bray.
We open one episode and it's like
we know
Kansas
he's
City,
dead. What's the point?
Missouri, 1989, and his dad comes home all angry. He's a cop as well. He's like, "You just got to do it better than me, son."
Anyway, sorry, derailed.
Well, I guess that's the end of the episode. Do we want to get into our maybe overall thoughts of this season in general?
I can go first, I guess. Yeah, I think as this season has kind of gone along, and you could probably tell from what I've talked about, like this whole the discussion, all the recaps, I feel like it's a mixed bag. And I think like the way they've told it has made me look less fondly on things that I might have praised in previous episodes, like Ellie and Dina's relationship. I really did like a lot of those scenes, or even like the attack on Jackson. Yeah, some of the scenes where they were like just what they, the council stuff. I thought there was some interesting stuff there, but I also feel like it was a lot of wasted time, and I feel like the momentum of the story, what it needed to be able to land. Like I said, the plane landed, a couple wheels came off the wing, one of the wings maybe flew off into the sky, but I think we needed more bandwidth. And Klein mentioned it. If this was 10 episodes, I think like these complaints wouldn't be here, because you would have the space to be able to delve more into Ellie, show more of that rage, maybe put more of that focus back on her. But yeah, it is such a weird feeling to have like loved part 2, defended part 2 to like no end, and then to for season 2 to be like kind of a conflicting experience. It's just very bizarre to me, and I hope, like, I don't know how they can like rectify some of the things that they can't really, because it's a completely different side of the story in season 3. But I hope season 3 is like a better experience, and I hope that the way that part of the story is told feels better than I felt watching this as a whole.
Ooh. I have two thoughts that really pop up to mind. One, I've like deemed this season as like Last of Us 2, where are the real adults in the room? It's like that part is bugging me, is for one thing. And then two, like, this is like a PvE kind of season where I'm rooting for the environment all the time. Where I'm like, all the like, Ellie, I'm like, I want you to die now. Like, I'm trying to figure out ways to reconcile the fact that this has made a character who I already, from my time with the game, and I need to go back and play it. I've been like jumping in and out of it all season, where I'm reflecting. I'm like, did I not like Ellie this much in the time that I played with her? And the answer was no. Like, there were moments where there were not a ton of levity, but it felt like, again, that competency was there, right? Like, in the first game, she's a child. She's learning about all the layers of how this all works. And in this season, she should know how it works now. You've had some of the best teachers in the space that you could. You had Joel, who you didn't listen to half the time anyway, because you thought you knew better. And you had other folks who were in the mix, who were constantly trying to hold you by the hand and say, if you just wait, you will have your moment. If you just wait, you will have the space to do what you need to do. And she bucks at it every time, but she has no plan. And I think that's the part that throws me off for most of the time in the season. And it just makes me not like her and not root for her. Like, even if she gets, I mean, she's going to get the revenge she wants, but like, the revenge that we're hoping for her to have, like you said, Lauren, there isn't enough of a body count to really gratify the people who want that version of, get what you want and come back for it. I know shows like this do the thing where they're like, the scariest thing in the world are not the zombies, it's the people. Like, I get what's the other one? Not Last of Us, Walking Dead. Walking Dead version
we are the Walking Dead.
Yeah, I understand that layer of it too, and I want there to be more like terror from the world that gives you more of like, oh yeah, we are really besieged by this thing. And yes, there are these factions and all these things, and Ellie's story of revenge is the driver here, but it just doesn't feel as dangerous as it should from a world perspective, which I'm wanting more of that. And I think the three standout episodes were, again, the killing of Joel, the museum scene that everyone loved. I think Neil Druckmann did a fantastic job of bringing that together, and I do think this last episode did a really good job of ushering us into the next space that we're looking and are excited about. But I echo a lot of what Thomas said. I think it was a very up and down season. Like, there were some moments where I was like, "Yo, fam, this could have been an email," and I'm like, "Yo, this," like there were like layers of that were really really smart, but also just like super dumb. And I was like, I wanted this to feel cohesive, and I wanted it to feel like they had learned a lot from from season one, and it feels like they are now seeing not only how big this has gotten and are moving more towards the zeitgeist as opposed to the storytelling that they wanted to employ. And that part is a little bit frustrating. And that part, I'm like, season 3, you got to kind of grip me in the first 2 episodes. I might dip out. Like, it may not be me. It may not be for me if you aren't really willing to get there. So I'm hoping that they've learned some lessons. I think it was really cool to see, again, those characters who didn't get a lot of love get some more in this. Isaac and Jesse, especially. And I love the woman who played the therapist. I thought she was brilliant.
Oh, Gail, yeah.
Gail is one of my favorite characters in the show, because again, she's a realist and an honest character who understands her place in the world and is actually doing her job. So yeah, I'm hoping they can nail it for season 3. But season 2 was a little bit of a disappointment, I have to say.
Yeah, I'm just going to echo things that have almost all been said here. I think that season 2, this is a good season of television, not a great season of television. I think that season 1 was a great season of television. I was so excited for season 1 simply because The Last of Us 1 and 2 were 2 of my favorite games of all time for a very long time. And I kept telling people, this is my favorite story in fiction, full stop. Like, I love the journey we go on from the first game all the way through to the end of the second game. And I think that the first season is a good enough facsimile for, if you are not a game player, you can watch that and feel 95% of what I felt playing that game. I do think that watching season 2 compared to playing part 2 is a bit of a lesser experience. There's some great in there. There's some amazing stuff in there. I think Isabella Merced as Dina is fantastic. Every time she was on screen, I'm just like, give me more of this. I think Bella in moments as Ellie is amazing. The Joel's death episode is, I think, one of the best episodes of the entire series, but I was missing those surprises from season 1. I think that maybe coming off season 1, they felt a little confident in changing things because they had the Bill and Frank episode, and they had a few of these other moments throughout the season where they did mess with it a little bit, and it really worked. Like, that Bill and Frank episode is, I think, one of the best hours of TV that's just ever been made. It's so good. And so coming into this, I never felt that way about anything that happened here. I never felt like the highs that I did in season 1. And I do think that, like, this is a good enough way to experience this story if you can't play the game, but I'm still going to recommend, if you have the chance, to play The Last of Us Part 2 and experience it that way, because I do think it is a better telling of this story as opposed to the way it went last time.
Yeah, I'll say my piece, but it is pretty much just amalgamations of what you've all just said, because I'm pretty much on the same page. I don't think this has been a bad adaptation of The Last of Us Part 2, but I definitely don't think it hit the same heights that they did in season 1, and that was to be expected. It's like a much more difficult game. It's a much more complex. It's much more of an experience to try and adapt than it is like a straightforward kind of road trip movie that season 1 was. But I do really think they managed to match the strength of the game. And that's not to say that, like, they weren't firing on all cylinders. Every actor that they cast is perfect for the role. Production value is insane. I think the cast and crew and everything on it is excellent. At the writing is also very good most of the time. It's just that some of the structural changes they've made in the adaptation process are resulting in something that's lesser than what it was is as to experience. as the game. And I think a lot of that comes down to, like we've said multiple times, just the pacing. That's been my biggest issue. It's meant that, like, the show has had to move through things so quickly and explain things to people instead of letting us sit there and figure it out ourselves and trust the audience, as we've said. And it's kind of baffling at times when you're like, it wasn't broken. Why are you trying to fix it? So I know that there were a lot of things that people didn't agree with in The Last of Us Part 2, but it does feel like some of the changes that they made here were going to try and like mediate that a little bit, and it just resulted in the story not really hitting as hard as it did in the game. So yeah, and I also would have really liked, like you say, Klein, some of, like, if you are going to change things, go and do what you did in season 1. Give us those really excellent pieces that we didn't get to experience in the game, like that great scene with Isaac when he was introduced with the Fedra soldiers. Like, that was great. Like, where was more of that? Even some of the flashbacks with Joel that were introduced, like, those were really great storytelling pieces, but we just didn't really get enough of those. And I think if they'd added more of those in and stretched the episode count out a little bit more, maybe we would be feeling a little bit differently. But yeah, on the whole, I still love The Last of Us. I still like the show. I like the individual pieces, but perhaps I just don't like how they've like shoved it all together. We didn't do categories, which I forgot to do. Do we want to give them for maybe the season overall? So usually we would give like a best moment, a best performance or line, and then like our favorite Easter egg. So
Ooh.
let's just do that for the whole season. Or if there's something in the specific episode that you want to call out, do that too. But I guess like we could start with best moment. Does anyone have a standout they want to shout
Of
out?
the whole season.
Or maybe you could do best episode.
I think my favorite episode of the whole season is, I guess it'd be Seattle Day 1.
Episode 4.
The episode 4, the real like culmination of Dina and Ellie's story and romance up to that point. That is Take on Me. That is them running through the TV station and really feeling like that was the first time this season where I was like, oh, this feels like playing the game, where they're in the subways and they're running away from the WLF, and you see the Seraphites, what they've done to the people hanging. So I think that that's probably my episode of the season, and my moment of the season is just that whole confrontation from when Ellie gets bit right up kind of to the end of the episode, where they culminate their romance, to put it plainly.
They canoodle a little bit.
Yeah,
That's an ally.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll go into Joel's death episode was my favorite. Again, like I haven't had a moment where the anticipation met the expectation that often in this show. And it was just cool to have that, again, zeitgeist moment where we all know what's happening, but seeing the people who don't know and seeing their reactions to it was pretty fantastic, because they just didn't know. And I was watching the day before and just online and watching people to be like, oh man, this is going to be really cool to see what happens when Joel makes it to the end of this series. And I was like, he's not gonna. It's great. So it's going to be one of those moments where, I think Pedro Pascal's performance has continued to grow on me in this role, which is, knowing his pedigree and how good he is. That was a very cool moment to be able to have that. I think, again, as a person who's a big horror fan, getting an honorable death is something that you look forward to. Actually, the biggest and best moment, though, for me was the grenade in the back of the truck.
Oh yeah,
that moment with Isaac.
Josh Peck.
That moment with Isaac solidified my want for there to be more of Isaac in this show, because it just showed I am down to do whatever I need to do for my people, and I will do the wildest thing, and it will work. So yeah, those are the two moments where just beautiful, brilliant moments in this.
Overall, I'd say I think my favorite episode overall is episode 5, which is Feel Her Love, which is the episode where they it's Ellie and Dina running about. To me, it just felt like the most. It emulated The Last of Us Part 2, or the experience of playing The Last of Us Part 2, the best for me. Just in terms of the momentum of like the set pieces they were going through with the stalkers going to the Seraphites. and then culminating with the hospital. I thought that was all just handled really, really well in terms of just a structurally sound episode. So I think that overall is probably my favorite. Some great moments in that. I think my favorite moment though is probably in the premiere. I think it's the dance sequence. It's one of my favorite sequences from the game. To see it adapted like so well in this season, I thought was just it was amazing. So I think it probably has to go to that.
I cry every time I hear that song. Just like the first two notes. It's like, damn, here we go. Here it is.
I learned to play that on the guitar because of that scene.
Oh, that's right.
That's awesome.
I wish I still had my guitar here, but yeah. I think my favorite episode was same with you, Klein, was episode 4 on the whole, because big Ellie and Dina fan. I was like really happy to see their relationship explored more and have airtime in that. And then I also did feel like it really emulated how it was to play the game with the WLF and the infected and all of it happening all at once. But I think my favorite moment, as much as I disagree with the placement of this scene, it was the porch scene between Joel and Ellie in episode 6 that really just hit me so hard, and it was such a big performative moment from both Pedro and Bella, and I really, really loved it. They changed it slightly and it just hit me very, very hard, but I don't agree with it being placed there in season 2, fortunately.
Yep.
And then any game Easter eggs we want to shout out. I had a couple from this most recent episode. One was that there is a giraffe toy in the bookstore, which I thought was pretty cool, like a shout out to the giraffes from season 1. And then also there's a shot in the aquarium where they come behind the head of a shark, and when you infiltrate the aquarium for the first time in the game, you kind of like turn on your flashlight and there's a giant shark head, and it's designed as a bit of a jump scare. So I like that was like a subtle shout out to that. So those were my 2.
Yeah, my favorite was, I think Klein kind of mentioned this briefly, but the crane, or like the sky bridge, you can see it kind of in the background of like some of the towers when Ellie and Jesse are going through Seattle. So I like those. That's what I was kind of alluding to. Like there's little teasers of like what we will get in season 3. Just remembering that scene between, spoilers if you haven't played the game, but with Abby and Lev up there, and just how precarious it is. So that, I think that was my like, oh yeah, that's I can't wait to get to that. That's gonna be cool.
I'll mention it because Ka, you brought it up earlier and you were like, there has to be something there. The book at the very end of the episode. So that is an Easter egg to the game. It's been kind of slightly altered in the TV show, but it's in the game. Abby wakes up and is reading a book called The City of Thieves, which is by David Benioff, one of the showrunners of Game of Thrones, that Neil Druckmann has said is an inspiration to The Last of Us. But it was published in 2008. So in this canon, it doesn't exist. So in the TV show, she's reading a book called Thieves of City instead of City of Thieves, and it's by Ben Davidoff, an anagram of David Benioff.
Wow, they're so clever.
That's a good pull.
I don't know. I saw that one going around. Also, shout out the bottle earlier in the season. We got 1. Bottle count stands at 1, but they used it as I would use it in the game, and that made me happy.
That's right.
Also, obviously, we're glad that Shimmer is alive. Shimmer, our man MVP, the performance of the season. Thank you, Shimmer, for surviving.
Shimmer just hanging out, starving.
No, there's grass. He said there was grass.
Oh, that's true. That's reasonable.
Yeah.
That's reasonable.
Well, we all know season 4, Mel's baby is going to come riding in on Shimmer, and that's how it's.
Of course,
bring
it all together.
So,
it's going to be a face inside of a bloater.
From Elvis car at the very end, we see the horse come flying in.
Oh my god, I love this. We're bringing this back when we do the Convergence Club.
2 years. 2 years.
Yeah, but that is it. This is our last review for this season, because the season's over. But thanks to all our listeners for letting us ramble on Cordyceps Club every week. It's not usually our regularly scheduled program to just talk about a TV show instead of our news and gaming topics. So thank you for listening us if you've been with us on this journey, and thanks to all our amazing guests for joining us to discuss.
Yeah,
I'll hand back to you now, Klein.
Thank you for having me. This is a blast. I'd love to hear the thoughts about it, because I don't get a chance to like dig into the weeds about the things that I'm watching as often as I do. and just loved all the thoughtful commentary about all that stuff. And
Before
again,
we
I think,
go,
yeah,
I want to ask you. We're gonna very quickly because we have been going quite long. Have you been
yes.
playing anything fun lately, Ka?
I'm playing all the competitive stuff. I'm playing Rivals and Predecessor, and a really good game that you should all check out. There's a demo on Steam called OMUT. It is if you mashed up a side-scrolling version of the Blair Witch Project and Midsummer together, but it's a
Ooh.
brutal
Cool.
one-hit kill shooter.
Fun.
Oh.
Okay, into that.
Good
Sounds
stuff.
cool.
Awesome. I will quickly shout out. I've been playing Monster Train 2, came out this week. It's on Game Pass. If you haven't played Monster Train 1, I'm just going to say it. Lauren and Tom are going to go, that sounds like a Klein game. It is a deck building roguelite, very similar to Magic the Gathering. And as a avid Magic player, I'm so into it. It gets me even more excited for Slay the Spire 2, which is supposed to be coming later this year. And I prefer that game to Monster Train. But right now, Monster Train 2, I think it's my game of the year so far. It is just like I am so incredibly addicted. I'm at that point in its life where every minute of every day it's all I can think about. And so it's absolutely fantastic. Check it out. It's on Game Pass right now if you have Game Pass and playing it on PC. And it's such a great, it feels like a new expansion of cards essentially just like showed up in Monster Train, and they've added equipment and a whole lot of new powers, and it's so good.
That
Tom?
does sound like a Klein game. That sounds like a very Klein game.
A very, very
But
Klein game.
sounds cool.
After
That
my
sounds fun.
Balatro addiction from last year. Tom, Drew, have
Yeah.
you been playing anything?
Yeah, I've written down a couple things so good very quickly. I mentioned last week that I was going to go to Marioke, which is basically Mario Kart, a live event where you play Mario Kart, but they have a live band there, an 8-person band playing all of the music. And guys, it was incredible.
Did they
I
do
didn't
Coconut
get
Mall?
They did. They played Coconut Mall, and it sounded amazing. They did so many different tracks. A lot of ones that I wasn't expecting. They did Coconut Mall, obviously. They did some of the Mario circuits and stuff. They did shout out Australia. Obviously, Lauren's home country. Sydney Sprint is
Oh,
is
nice.
a track in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and a super underrated musical track, but they played it and it sounds amazing. Like they had a saxophone, trombone, trumpet going, and it just sounded so cool. Unfortunately, I didn't get the chance to actually play. It was kind of like you got to put your name in, and then they picked your name out of the hat. The two people I were with did get to play, so I was kind of like, oh man, I wish that was me. But no, it was just an amazing experience. And I also found out another Australian mentioned the original Marioke was created by an Australian band in Melbourne. So this UK kind of side juncture is like a kind of inspired by that. So I thought it was pretty cool. But if you see something similar to this in your area, definitely go. It's a lot of fun. They play the Starman theme when you get a star in the game. So they're playing the music and they just stop when someone gets a star, and then they start playing the star theme. It's so cool. So yeah, pretty sick. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that this week I played Duck Detective: The Ghost of Glamping. I got a review code as part of Control Club. Very gracious to Happy Broccoli Games for sending that over. I made a separate review video on a YouTube, and there's a short on our other social media platforms as well. But the long of the short of it is, it's a really fun game. It's pretty short. It's only like an hour or two long. But if you want this fun little quirky puzzle type game, I definitely recommend it. It's kind of like you go around finding clues in this weird camping trip that you kind of sucked in on. But there's a little bit more going on under the surface, and you kind of have to put these words together to make phrases, and you kind of unravel this mystery as you go along. So check out the review on our channels and the socials if you want to hear a bit more about it. But I would thoroughly recommend it. It's a cute little game and a lot of fun. And finally, I noticed Car has a Doomslayer helmet in the background there. I would be remiss if I didn't mention Doom the Dark Ages. Lauren, have you had a chance to play it yet, by any chance?
I have stepped a toe into Doom the Dark Ages, but I know we're running long, so maybe we get into a deeper discussion next week, because I've only played one chapter.
Okay, yeah, because I played the first 5, so maybe we'll talk a bit about it more later. But quickly, Card, have you touched Doom?
Yeah, I reviewed it. It was great. Fantastic game for sure.
It's full of fun. So we'll get more into that next because we're running long. But good game. Very good game.
Awesome. Well, that's it. Lauren, Doom, that's it. That's all you've been playing?
Yeah, we'll save it for next week. So
Yeah,
an enticing
cool.
hook.
We'll get back
for the
to our
viewers to
regularly
return.
scheduled programming next week. We'll talk about the news. We'll talk about Switch 2, less than 2 weeks away. Very exciting. That's going to do it for this episode of Controller Club. As always, please go follow the show at Controller Club Pod, Instagram, and Blue Sky at controller_club on Twitter. Also, you can send us an email, controllerclubpod@gmail.com. Kahlief Adams, the man of the hour, a very special guest. I know I said 90 minutes and we're approaching 105, but here I've thrown you the red carpet. Thank you so much for putting up with us. Where can people keep up with you? What do you have going on in your life? And where can we send the people?
I was just gonna say thank you for letting me talk as long as I do. I just got really excited, so I apologize for pushing you so
Really
long.
love it.
Check out Spawn on Me on all podcast platforms. We're trying to get to 10,000 subs on our YouTube channel, so go to youtube.com/Spawn on Me. Check out all the work that I do over there for reviews, previews, and cool stuff all the time over there. And we're going to be doing a whole bunch of stuff at Summer Game Fest in a couple of weeks, so make sure you're checking out all of our coverage there as well. So massive love to you all. This was fantastic, and again, big fan of the work you've been doing, and the show is brilliant, and I love the way you all kind of pull it together and make it sound so awesome. So thank you again for having me.
We try our best. Lauren, where can people keep up with you?
You can follow me at lrouse19. That's Rouse spelled as in house on Twitter, Blue Sky, TikTok. Not much to report. I'm just posting about the show.
Tom, what about you? Anything exciting? Any new art in the works?
Yeah, well, you can find me at Tom Drew Art, Instagram, Blue Sky, Twitter. There is art in the works. It's taken me a long time, but there's a lot of details in it, so I'm trying to take my time and get it right. But you'll find it there. I also posted like my MCM Comic-Con haul. If you want to see what I got there, it's up on my Blue Sky. Also, again, the Marioke, the final round on Rainbow Road is up on my Blue Sky. If you want to see the chaos and just the fervor of everyone in there, it was like a sports game. It was incredible. So check out my socials. You'll find all that there.
You can keep up with me everywhere. I'm at The Kleinfeld. This is another episode of Controller Club. As always, thank you for listening, watching, being a part of the show. Now, as always, let's get gaming.